Barbara and I, you'll see them in the movie, in the film. This is my stuff, and it has eagle feathers and raven feathers on the top. And we know that eagle and raven are sacred to the indigenous peoples of this land. They're also sacred to my people, my Celtic people. Raven, the Celtic name of raven is Bran. And he was a giant. He is a giant. And he and his sister Bronwyn led my people across the Atlantic Ocean when they fled their home. The eagle is the name for eagle in Celtic is Eolera. And in the British Isles, there are 2 eagles that guard the burial place of King Arthur. So you can see that these are important to my peoples, and thus I really needed to have them on my staff. Barbara's staff, love to see Barbara's staff, about more than half of it, there's almost 4 feet, almost 4 feet of bark. And Barbara's people are Germanic, and they are forest people. So one day, the water brought the bark to Barbara, and she put it around another piece of wood and made it, and that became her staff. So we are carrying, with the staffs, we are carrying our ancestors.
And then we'll transition into the talkback. We gathered outside in Gabriel, and we were in a circle together with Elder Dave. And even though we won't be in a circle, to imagine ourselves in a circle, and that we're all connected in that sharing that we'll be doing. And that sharing is part of our co-inquiry, Taz and my co-inquiry, hearing your experiences. And maybe you've got stories that emerge through witnessing this. It's all part of our co-inquiry and learning and continuing to learn by connection with our ancestors. And Ingrid will be the moderator for that.
It's interesting the tools that we have at our so this will be our talking stick, and I would just like to open this talk back with a question that I've been thinking about quite a long time, and I'd like maybe to each of you, when you're ready, to answer, and it is, how did this process of creating this work affect you?
Just a light question to start. You first. Hugely. I'd say my life is not going to be the same after this. Yeah, and I'm thinking about it, and my partner Miguel was asking me tough questions last night in preparing me for the talk back. And I think when we started this process, I actually reluctantly came in. Taz wanted to work with ancestors, and I'm like, really? And I have worked with ancestors, and I've worked with the ancestors of lands where I've lived to help get myself connected to those lands. And but I was resistant. I was resistant to my own ancestors, and in particular, my male lineage ancestors. And so when we started, we thought our focus would be our maternal lineage ancestors. So that's how we started the work, was focusing on the female ancestors who we were more comfortable connecting with as women ourselves. And as we began to work and stories began to emerge in the studio, and we're witnessing each other's stories, which you saw a few of those, we did many of those, we realized that we needed to recognize all of our ancestors. And so now I feel like I actually have my ancestors with me. I really feel like I have them. And that's huge going forward in my life. And I'd say it's really the last year, and we've been working on this for more than 8 years, that I really had to pull them in to be able to bring this project to completion, because we've tried a few times to bring it to completion, but we weren't ready. And so this last year, we studied more. We studied, and we studied with teachers that could help us work with our ancestors. We realized as we went along that we needed more support. And so they're here. They've all been here today. They actually helped with filming that we did. They've helped actually along the way amazingly. And so hugely changed to have my ancestors with me. And I remember going to an art exhibition I was in that art exhibition waiting for a ferry when my dad passed. And it was an Australian art show that was traveling. And all of these Aborigine artists, they were so connected to their ancestors. And I was envious of them. I thought, they're connected. Like they have, that relationship hasn't been severed. And I feel like through these 8 years, like I've actually returned, and I now no longer have a severed relationship with my own ancestors. And that's the first work that needs to happen before I can work with the Indigenous peoples who are so connected to their ancestors on these lands. So I think I'm forever changed in that way. Yeah, with that support to go forward.
Forever changed. Bless you. So for myself, it began since I moved here, especially, but before that, I actually have hunted for my ancestors for a long time. When I was 20, I quit school and I went to Europe to find my ancestors. Then when I moved here, surrounded by the Indigenous peoples in this part of the world so intensely, I really felt the burden of the guilt and the shame for what my ancestors had done to the Indigenous peoples. My ancestors have been living, my mother's side of the family, my ancestors have been living in North America since early 17th century, so a long time. And whenever I'm a choreographer, and whenever there's been something that's important to me, upsetting to me, I've always made it into performance. And so I knew I couldn't do this by myself, and Barbara and I had collaborated, and she had gifts that I do not. And so I asked her if she would join me, and it's right, she said, oh, everybody's working on ancestors now. But she didn't. Anyway. And so the process, we were very focused on bringing healing to our ancestors. We used the guidelines of Daniel Floor's book, Healing Ancestry, our ancestor healing. And he guided us to go back as far as we could into time until we found a well enough ancestor, that ancestor would do the healing down through the years and years and years to the last person who has passed. And so I connected to the lady in white. She is the daughter of a fairy mother and human father. So that's part of my ancestry. And Barbara can tell you about her ancestor connection. In that healing, I can only speak for myself clearly, I was very focused on the ancestral healing, but then it became clear that had to include us as well, that we too carried trauma, intergenerational trauma passed down, and that I carried trauma that happened to me in my life. And that affected my ability to relate, and still does, I'm sure, ability to relate to others, particularly those that are close to me. And Barbara and I had our troubles in relationship with our intergenerational, we're working so closely with our ancestors that in a way our energetic, ancestry, there was all kinds of energies that got quite confused between us. For me too, although my family have been very aware of our histories, with a very different perspective than I have, because my grandparents, my grandmother was taken across North America by her father from the Eastern Townships of Montreal across to Alberta, in the late 19th century, and they saw things that were really horrific, and were not spoken of actually in my family. They were not spoken of. I learned about them later. And my personal healing came, and this was very intense. So I realized through my own healing, so I'll disclose I have sexual trauma, early sexual trauma. And from that, I was imprinted this belief that I'm not good enough. And I realized that was something that I carried from my mother, my mother's mother, my grandmother, on both sides, all the way back. For women carrying this imprint that we are not good enough, this fear that we are, that we will be murdered, our children will be murdered if we speak, as Barbara's ancestors spoke so eloquently too. And if we show up in any way, we will be harmed or destroyed. And so that imprint brings a heritage of great shame and fear. And so I prayed for a long time for this shame to be taken away from me. And my spiritual director said, Janice, only a certain amount can be done by therapy. I'm a therapist, really. So only a certain amount can be done by therapy. And so I prayed to my ancestors and to Spirit for this healing. And one day, as I was doing a movement at my home, the shame was just taken by my ancestors, and it hasn't returned. So that's more profound than I can say, and that was through the process of the work that we've done together. I never would have not remotely, but and now they are always with me, lady in white. I connect with them every day on both sides. We all have thousands of ancestors, really, thousands of us. I mean, thousands of us, yes, us together. And I think of it often as being a web woven together. Lisa's woven robe, the robes that Barbara has knitted, her ancestral robes, that weaving, that knitting, that's what we are all held by these thousands of ancestors right here amongst all of us. That's the knowing that I have.
Wow. Well, I came into this process much later, just really to film what they've been working on for all these years, and really had no familiarity with ancestral work or healing, and kind of was in the dark a lot of the times, really. I was just trying to capture what they were portraying, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But in terms of what's changed, seeing it tonight, I was moved to tears like a lot of the time, which somehow this experience is just bringing that, and I think it's just going to keep registering and changing, and as whatever's happening that we're not in control of, but we've in some way summoned forth. And just to see it on this enormous screen, this is by far the biggest screen we've seen this on, and to see these performances and the vulnerability and the very powerful. And just the things that I wanted to do in filmmaking sort of just appeared in this.
I'm so happy.
And it hasn't always been that way, and it's, didn't expect this moment, but that's what's happening.
Yes, I think we are embraced by your work, really, really hugely. How you convey it, something that felt so authentic. So I'd like to open the floor for comments or questions, or even how you were touched by this.
I'll just say it loudly for the moment. I don't know you, but your heart, the heart that came forward right now, was so evident in every bit of filming. It was exquisite. We saw your heart there, we saw your heart here, and thank you for your beautiful heart. Yeah, bless you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I just want to thank you for your beautiful work, and I was really touched by, I was really inspired by the magical puppets, and I was just curious, and the beauty of nature and of the raw emotion and of your experiences, and actually I kind of was affected because my older sister told me about that there was 5 million, which is that I think around 5 million, which is that were burned at the stake or drowned and things like that. So that really came up for me, and I felt like even though there was one person there, I thought about all of them, and that it was a really patriarchal society, and it was really the men that were doing that kind of damage, and then it's also the men that came over to North America and inflicted that same kind of genocide on the indigenous people here at Métis as well. So it brought up that kind of journey for me, and so yeah, I was just grateful for the images of the water, the land, the nature. My mother is not Indigenous, and she comes from Europe, and there's been trauma in my family as well, and I know that it was through nature that she healed her heart and the trauma that she had in order to reconnect in a healthy way in relationships with all of her children. And so I understood kind of that kind of thing, but the loss of the daughter, really, the child, was really harsh too, and I was really affected by that. And again, I thought, it's the patriarchal society of Europe that I was like, okay, like all of these women are just really held back, and they're really put in these places. And we all know it from history that a lot of that happened. So I was wondering if you could talk about these magical beings and share with us some of the inspiration and what they meant for you through this really challenging journey that you've shared with us. And I want to thank you for your generosity, for your courage, your bravery, and your strength to be able to share all of what you shared today. Thank you.
Yeah, so the ancestors, this I always have it. Thank you though. Yeah, the ancestresses came in about 5 years ago, so we were just starting into our 4th year, and things were heating up. Getting like how do we actually gain more support? And Tanis was like, we could be working with make our ancestors really big, and they could be witnessing us in the studio. Like we can actually have these other beings. We were visiting them, but it's realizing those ancient ancestresses that we invoked early on to help us, to support us, that we as humans on this earth, our small little beings, couldn't heal our ancestral lineage, but we could draw on these early ancestors to actually do the healing with those ancestors, and that we were the embodied, living, breathing beings that were holding this end of it. And so my ancestors emerged during actually during COVID, we were doing spontaneous creation making a couple times a week online with community, and I just, it's so spontaneous, so you're not planning on what you're gonna do, and I was living in Alberta at the time, and I had Alberta clay, and so I just took a ball of clay and had like 15 minutes to create something in my hands, and I didn't know what I was gonna create, and this really fragile bird human being kind of showed up in this figure that I created. So if you look at the ancestral altars out at the end there, there's one ancestress bird human figure that's out there. So she's one that I've made more recently. So they keep emerging. And so Tanis was like, well, okay, you could make that, that human bird, woman bird ancestress, like really big. Like she maybe is your ancestress. And I was like, of course, like she's been showing up like through my hands, through this clay work. And so I got to make her in a big form, like a giant, like protectress, for me. And then I, as we were doing this project, and I was doing more research into my ancient history, which is all dramatic, and realizing there were people of the forest. And so that I have a bird ancestress that lives in the trees is like, okay. Like they're here, they've been with us, they've been with my ancestors, and now they're here. And so being on Gabriola and having those birds and those ravens, that were with us so much of the filmmaking, it was so magical having all those different winged kids show up in the film. Yeah, and that's actually where I get the most moved in the credits, is when I see, oh yeah, like they're all here, and those were the words that were next to them were in the Hokomena language, which is on the lands that we were. And I also want to say that I printed in Victoria, that's where I grew up, and so that landscape. And then I was gone for 40 years, and 5 years ago I was able to return and move to Nanaimo. And so the land has been really, really healing for me. And the islands, the little islands, so Seisuchin and Gabriola, which I'm going to say the name because I've just learned the indigenous name, is I can't get to do a T and a K at the same time. Is actually the name of Gabriola Island, which was their biggest, was their largest village. It was 1,500 people, and that was the name of it. So that's actually the name that they have for Gabriola. So really healing with the land, and it also found. I also just want to say that making our healing protectress, ancestresses visible and really present for us, and then also that opened up more to the land ancestors that are also here supporting us, and so the like this land as well really supported us to do this work. So thank you for that question.
Yeah. So the lady in white came and took charge of the healing of my matrilineal lineage all the way down. And she has been with me, really, actually, we found them a long time ago. We found them in 2018. So she has been with me ever since, and I was treated for throat cancer in 2019, and she was with me all the time, which is really, I told you that, I think, yeah. And I received her, how she was to look. Of course, that her face is made off my face, and her mouth, needed to be open. And when we were talking about having the ancestors actually speak to you, the words that came to me is that my mouth is open in wonder and amazement at the mystery of life. So she's just like that. And she led her people, through land to land, pushed by human greed largely as well as natural forces. She when I wanted to make she comes from the way, way north. So most of my ancestry is from Scotland. So I have this wonderful picture of the Hebrides, an island in the Hebrides, and it's like it's surrounded by lashing waves. And I just saw her coming out of those stones of that island. So that's what you see. Her face is coming out of stones. And she's guarded quite because she's very, although she, she's has a very big personality. What more can I say? Oh, there's one piece when we were first calling, and then I started to make those sounds of my voice that aren't like human sounds. They, on my ancestry also is silky. So the silky of the people they're seals, and they have when they come on the land they turn into humans. But if they go back into the sea, they can never come back. Some of you may know about the silkies. So that's what I mean. For years, whenever I've been near the sea, I have this call coming out of my body. And that's what that is. And what's extraordinary is the seals, as you can see from the imagery from when we were in Gabriola. There were 2 seals there like all the time, and otters were there too. These 2 seals were there all the time. And so, we were singing to each other.
At the beginning, you talked about your ancestors bringing gifts to you too.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a 2-part question. I'm curious if there were gifts that came up over the 8 years before you started the filming, in terms of the gifts that you were surprised at, were curious, or that arose, not just the pain, and then through doing the ritual, and the integration that happened from the pains that you went through, what arose of the gifts from the pain, or what's power, what arose from that place?
I think for me, the gifts that have emerged, over time, have been an increased sense of deepening into place. My ancestors too are people of the land, and I love to garden. So I just plunge myself more and more deeply into my garden and passionately into my garden. And my relationship with all the beings that live around me that are not in specific form, just communing with the place where I live in a deeper and deeper way, and we talk, we talk with each other, we have conversations with, I tend all the plants and the birds, and I hover, I'm a very motherly, I hover over, everybody that shows up there. I feel in this process of the work, I've noticed that I no longer carry the guilt and the shame I carry. I'm incredibly sad over what was done. And I'm more and more motivated to make a difference. But I also feel in the presence, this is the biggest gift, the presence of my ancestors have allowed me to relax into myself. Yeah, so I'm less constricted, and then as you spoke to the patriarchy, Yvonne, that's what imprinted women over thousands of years, and oppressed, in their bodies, in constriction, fear and constriction. And I'm free of that. I can't say, that I will ever be free, but I'm free of that. And I'm old, so that's another reason why I care less and less about everything around me.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, I just want to speak, well, one of the other pieces that brings Tana and I together is both of our passion for art as a healing process and as part of our lives. And all art forms, not limited to any art form, and also not constrained by the art world. But to be free to actually follow. And for me, art is spirit. And that's a gift from my ancestors, that I understand art as spirit. And it's my religion. If I have to have a religion, it's art. And it takes me places that can be really, really, really hard. And then also really, really beautiful as well. So the healing pieces, I'd say some of the particular ones, some of the gifts, is I've connected my own ancestors. One of the gifts that I got last year, which actually first brought Greg over, he helped me with another piece because I was so stuck in this project. And then my grandmother said, you have to do your own piece of work. So, and I was spending a lot of time on this car-free island that's just outside my window because we're lucky to live on the water. And I was going there a lot to do healing work. One of those trips I did when I was feeling really low energy. I could barely even have the energy to go, but I found a grove of trees. And this is all part of me discovering that my ancestors are true people. Is last year, and so I found this grove of trees where I was doing these rituals, and I kept going back there, even though it was really hard for me to get there. And at one of the trances that I did, my ancient ancestors showed up. And all the work that we've been doing when we go into trance, I would always go to old Europe to be with my ancestresses that I was working with. So last year, they found me, and they came to me on such an island. And the trees of that grove were the portals. So there was a different ancestress at each of the trees, which was kind of mind blowing for me. It's like, they found me. I've obviously opened, the doors for them to actually come and find me here. And so now I feel like they're here with me on this land. And they found the portal of the trees that I was, doing my ritual and spending a lot of time with. And trees have been my friends. I have a lot of tree friends in different places where I live. But so that's a really huge gift, was for them to come and find me here. I don't always have to go to old Europe. I still can go there, but they actually know where I am now, and they can come and be here. And often when I'm out walking along the water, I've also, so definitely my female ancestors, my matrilineal ones, I feel like I'm with them in the forest. And the interesting piece is my patrilineal ancestors, I really connect with them when I'm on the water. Like on the ocean and the river. I live by the river as well in Nanaimo, coming from the mountain. And I feel like they're there, so I actually have conversations with them, and I've gotten lots of downloads as I've been troubleshooting. How do we actually create this piece and finish it? It needs to be completed. And I would get these downloads from them, and I know it wasn't coming from me, because I'd just be in my own pain trying to, figure things out. And then I get this download, and I go, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And they told me, so I could do it. So yeah, those are some of the gifts that I received. Thank you for that question. It's a great question.
Still at time, yes.
Thank you, all of you, for your vulnerability and courage and your beauty and giving us the courage to keep doing this work. I'm really taken by watching you both witness each other in the film and just in the process, all of you. And I wonder, it's really interesting to me that this has taken over a long time. And as artists, as people, we often think it's going to take a short time. But I think there's some fruit of this fertility of this longer period of 8 years working on this, or probably much longer than that. And I'm wondering if you want to speak to is the kind of slowness. Do you have any thoughts on that? And as reflecting, now.
I'm gonna speak to that because I've actually been thinking about it because of this dream I had on the morning of our other launch. It has been it's the longest time I've ever worked on one project. It's like, when is it gonna end? And so it was really hard. Like, how do you bring something to a close when it's getting more and more complex the more you dive deep into it? And so I'll just share the dream because it speaks it so well. So, and I think it's actually the mountain that's behind it. So I dream about climbing a mountain. And I do this long journey. And I get to the top of the mountain and I'm up there and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm looking at the skies and I'm in awe of the skies. And then I realized, well, you can look down. You're actually on the top of a mountain. You can actually look down. And when I look down, I see on the opposite direction, some people starting to walk towards me. And I'm like, and then there's more of them coming and more of them coming. And I'm like, oh, where are those people coming from? Like, and so a few of them come and I said, how long did it take you to get up the mountain? And they said, oh, in 10 minutes. And it had taken me, like I had done this long, and I equated this dream to this 8-year journey of me climbing this big mountain. And then there's these folks that found a 10-minute walk up, and then I thought about the audience, right? And then how do you bring those peaks together? Because we met on the peak. All those people came, and I was there as well. But it took me 8 years, to get to that peak. And you as the audience are coming in. How long did it take you to get here today? So anyway, that's little thing around the time. Yeah.
It's a really good question, and some of it was COVID that stopped our ability to work in the studio. And then when we were going to perform it a year ago, I got COVID just before we were supposed to rehearse. So, forces bigger than us. However, I would say it was the ancestors that really needed, it took us that long to learn what we needed to learn, to be able to be ready to offer this and gather it together, because they were just like over the time that it took, we deepened in our understanding of what needed to happen and where and how it needed to happen. And once we got clear on that, things just unfolded actually quite quickly. So yeah, we and the ancestors knew we weren't ready. So yeah, and then of course bigger world events, which is just part of life, right? I mean, we all think we have control, we know that all, and because there's such big things that are happening on Earth and in the world, that we have to like flow around and within.
Well, our time is up. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
I just think both of the four of us should stand and just honor.
Thank you all so much for So it won't take us long to wrap up, so if we want to talk about that, we'll be pretty soon.